Welcome back, NFL fans. So today we're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks, and if you're a Seahawks fan, you may not like this video, I'm not going to lie, but I always try to be honest about my opinions, and I'm going to say it. I think the Seattle Seahawks, something needs to change. This whole Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll thing, something has to change here because we have not seen this team reach the Super Bowl since 2015, and they're probably going to miss the playoffs this year. Yes, Russ was hurt. That definitely hurts their chances of winning, but there's a lot of flaws with this Seattle roster, and Russell Wilson, being the player he is, top 5 player in the NFL, plays the most important position, was able to disguise a lot of the deficiencies on Seattle's roster for the past, 6-7 years. But with Russell going down, they lost, I think, 2 out of 3 with Geno Smith, and now Russell's back and clearly not 100%. We're starting to see how bad the Seahawks roster actually is. Now, looking at Seattle's defense, it's funny because they're only allowing 20.9 points per game on defense, which is really good. That's like top 7 in the NFL right now. It's awesome. It's next to the Carolina Panthers, the Packers. Their defense has been great. So you look at that and you're like, oh, well, the Seahawks defense is pretty good. But then you go into the amount of yards they've given up, and it's a ton. They have given up the second most yards per game in the NFL so far this year, only trailing the Jets. So I don't know how you're that bad in giving up yards, but really good at not giving up points. I don't know how that happens. And even the passing defense is horrible. The run defense is below average. So Pete Carroll, who's more of a defensive-minded head coach, I mean, at some point he's got to go, right? Like something has to give. Whether you give up on Russell Wilson or give up on Pete Carroll, or do you give up on both? I think if I'm a Seahawks fan, I don't want to trade Russ, obviously. So I would be like, you know what, Pete Carroll, it's been nice. We've had some great memories. You took us to 2 Super Bowls. We won 1, but you got to go. You've been great since you've been here, but you got to go. Like, this is too much of the mid-2010s Atlanta Hawks, where they would go to the playoffs every year and then nothing would happen. With Josh Smith and Joe Johnson and Al Horford, that team always go to the playoffs, but nothing happens. That's the Seattle Seahawks. Since Russell Wilson's been there, this has been the Seahawks records by year: 11-5, 13-3, 12-4, 10-6. 10-5-1, 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 12-4. Now they're 3-7. So this might be the year that everything changes, and they have not gotten past the divisional rounds since 2014, since they won the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's been a long time since they've been in that Final Four NFC Championship game, and they've always came up short, and it just comes down to their roster's just not that great. And this is a team that traded 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams, and when I reacted to that trade, I said, wow, the Jets actually got the much better part of that deal, and I stand by that today. I mean, the Jets, looking at it right now, the Jets have 2 top 5 picks probably, or somewhere around there, because they have their own pick, and the Jets suck, as we know. But now Seattle's 3-7, and maybe Seattle gets some more wins in the second half of the year. It's definitely possible as Russ gets healthier as the year goes on, but there's still a lot of concerns about this team, and they might be 5 or 6 win team this year. Who knows? Seattle's just not that great right now. They don't really strike fear into any opponents. I mean, looking at their schedule, they should get at least 3 more wins. They play the Detroit Lions in week number 17. They play the Houston Texans in week number 14. And they play the Chicago Bears in week 16. So there should be at least 3 wins coming up there, but this is a team that will fall short of the playoffs. There's not many teams that come back from 3-7. I don't know if it's ever been done. It probably has, but it's very unlikely, especially for a team like this who gives up the amount of yards they do on defense. Their offense is just not good. They brought in an offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who came from the Rams, and before the year, I felt great about it. I was like, I was trying to picture Russell Wilson in a Rams offense. I'm like, that actually sounds very nice, but the Seahawks offense has been awful, and Shane Waldron's definitely been put under notice by Pete Carroll. Kind of called them out recently. So their offensive coordinator's not that great right now. Their defense is giving up a ton of yards, and Seattle's 3-7. And now it's been since 2014 since they've gotten to the NFC Championship game. So if you're a Seahawks fan, what do you guys want? Is it time to move on from Pete Carroll? I think it is. I think Pete Carroll's kind of overstayed his welcome. Is it time to trade Russell Wilson, which I don't want to do because I still think Russ has at least 5 more really good years left in him? Or, do you move on from both and start a whole rebuild? That's the thing. So Seattle still has great players. I kind of crapped on the trade for Jamal Adams before, but Jamal Adams is a really good player. He's a tremendous run stopper, really good tackler, plays in the box very well. We've seen him in coverage. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. Bobby Wagner is one of the most underappreciated players in football history. Maybe he's awesome. You have corners and Sidney Jones, who's okay. He was better in Philly, of course. You still have Dwayne Brown at left tackle, who's pretty up there in age, so he's probably not a part of the future. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and of course Russell Wilson. So this team has players. There's a reason that they've been relevant for the past 5 years, despite not making it past the the second round of the playoffs. So they have players, but for some reason Seattle doesn't draft well, and I feel like every draft pick they've made and every trade they've made in recent years has not benefited them really at all. Like, when's the last time Seattle really drafted a guy who was like a big impact player? And to answer that, I'll look at some of the recent draft picks: Dwayne Eskridge, Trey Brown, Stone Forsythe. I don't know who that is, but what have they done? Nothing. In 2020's class, Jordan Brooks has been a pretty nice player for them so far. It could be better. Darrell Taylor, I don't hear much about him. Damian Lewis plays some guard, right guard, and left guard for them. He's been okay, so that's a good third-round pick for the most part. Kobe Parkinson barely plays. DJ Dallas he is what he is. I like Dalton Robinson coming out. He might be a fine player one day. Showed some flashes last year, but hasn't really developed into a great player yet. Freddie Swain, we see sometimes, but nothing great there either. Their last real impact player was either LJ Collier or DK Metcalf back in 2019, and that's like 3 drafts ago now. So, John Schneider, who's been the GM there since 2010, I believe, who's made some great moves, getting that team, Max Unger and getting them Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, all those guys. Of course, they've had a ton of great moves there in Seattle over the years, but that was a long time ago. You have to live in the now, and what have you done for me lately? And he has not done much, and I just think at some point something has to give in Seattle, whether the GM's gone or the head coach, or you move on from Russ and try to get a bunch of draft picks for him while you can. It's going to be interesting, though, because I do think Seattle's going to miss the playoffs this year, and that's not really familiar territory for them. They usually make it every year, and I don't really know if things are going to get much better. Of course, it would help if Russell Wilson was healthy for 17 games. That would help a lot, but Seattle does have to just get over that hump at some point. You can't be a wild card or divisional round exit every single year. You have to build a team that has a Super Bowl ceiling, and they just don't have that. They have the quarterback for it. They have some guys on defense for it, but it's even worse because right now they're 3-7 once again, and they don't even have their own first-round pick, which makes it even worse. So I feel bad for Seahawks fans in that regard, and Jamal Adams probably has not been worth it so far. You can like Jamal Adams all you want, but the guy's not worth 2 first-round picks, and once again, the GM Schneider has to be questioned about that. I'm sure Pete Carroll had a lot to say in that as well. So Seattle's in a tough spot right now, and I do think changes may happen. We'll see how bad things get the second half of the year, but right now at 3-7, you don't like what you see there from Seattle. Their offense has been really bad the last couple weeks. I know Russell's coming back from injury and whatnot. They got shut out, and then they just played the Cardinals and lost to them. They had no offense in that game. It was a home game, too, to make it even worse against Colt McCoy, and they still lost by like 10 or 17. I forget the score, but they lost by a lot. So it's funny. I actually made a video about the Seahawks because they are fascinating the past 5, 6, 7 years about what could have been. I actually called that video the Almost Dynasty because the Seahawks really, if you think about it, we're 1 yard away with Marshawn Lynch from possibly building a dynasty. That would have been 2 Super Bowl wins in a row, and them deciding to pass that ball changed everything. It felt like some players lost trust and didn't understand why they did that. I went over that in the video. So if you guys want to watch that video, go ahead. I'll put the link in the description. So I've talked about this before. The Seahawks are a very interesting case, and it's a lot of what could have been. They had so much in front of them. They hit on a 3rd-round pick in Russell Wilson. They just struck gold, and it's resulted in 1 Super Bowl. That's great, but it could have been a lot more, and it's sad, honestly. I do feel bad for them in that regard. That'll do it for the video. Seahawks fans, let me know in the comments, what would you guys want to do going forward after this year? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.